Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for another Tech Visionary interviews. This time we are fortunate to have Maarten joining us from Netherlands. Hey, Maarten.
Hi, Reza. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. Which city in Netherlands you are living?
I live in Breda, which is in the south of the Netherlands, near the Belgian border. But as you might know, the Netherlands is a very small country, so it only takes me 2, 3 hour drive, and I'm on the north side of the Netherlands, so it doesn't really matter where you live, I guess.
That's very cool. And by the way, right now it's 9 a.m. Martin's time, 9 p.m. my time. So we managed to find a
Yes.
time that works for both of us.
We live exactly opposite of each other across
Yeah,
the
if you
globe. Yeah.
draw a pin, it would come out exactly. Right. Okay. Thank you again for your time today. So the topic today is talking about like the influence of COVID-19 on the organizational culture, digital transformation, technology, everything like that. But before we start that discussion, would you mind introducing yourself? Tell us about your background, what do you do these days, and just introduce yourself, please.
Yes, all right, thank you. So I live in the Netherlands. I run a company there called Portiva together with my partners, and we are about 100 people big now, 100 employees, and we basically implement Microsoft Cloud. And in a quite broad sense, we originally come from the SharePoint corner. So when we started the company in its current format in 2010, we were a SharePoint shop, and we were really in that niche and did SharePoint implementations. And I think we were quite good at it, and we grew sustainably. And of course, SharePoint moved more into a broader Office 365. And now I guess we do Microsoft 365 in a broader sense, also security. We offer managed security solutions to our customers as well. And within that company, I'm end responsible for everything that is technology and knowledge related. So I try to translate Microsoft products into solutions for our customers, because most customers are not interested in a particular tool. They're interested in a solution which helps them, right? So I try to make that translation, and I also try to take care of the knowledge sharing within our company. We have adopted kind of the Spotify model with tribes and guilds, and that's something that I try to run and try to encourage within our company.
That's good. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. So considering this like vast experience in SharePoint and like Microsoft 365, all these digital transformation tools and services, you should have felt the impact of COVID-19 quite well, because like there's a saying that if CIOs force, if let's say the budget of the company is forced, if none of them made digital transformation possible, COVID-19 did.
Yeah.
What is your experience on that?
Yes, we saw quite a big change in the beginning of this year, and I think there's two things that suddenly changed within companies. So first of all, it was the fact that people had to work together remotely. So suddenly everybody was working from home. So the working from home topic gave companies two challenges basically, and one is they had to work together. So how are we going to do that? So all the organizations that were already using things like Teams or Zoom or other remote meeting technology platforms, I think they had a head start of all the companies, of all the organizations that maybe were not there yet. And there was a lot of pressure from the organization and from everybody who's working there to implement something really rapidly. And of course, enabling Microsoft Teams is very easy. It's just flip the switch and you have Microsoft Teams in your tenant, you have it available. But that doesn't mean that you have implemented it well, right? Because there's
Correct.
a lot of governance stuff, security stuff, but also user adoption things that you need to take care of and you need to think about. So now we are half a year later, almost a year later, and now we see that a lot of companies, a lot of organizations are struggling with how they switched on Teams and how they forgot, or it's not really forgetting, but it's about not having the time back then to take care and to pay attention to all the other things that I just mentioned. And so we can dive into that a little bit deeper later on if we want to. And the second thing that I see is not just about working remotely, being able to work together, but it's also from a managerial perspective. A lot of managers in organizations have trouble or challenges with managing their team remotely. So it's not just about the peers and the colleagues working together, it's also about managers that need insight, that want to have a feeling about what are people doing, are they doing the right things. They don't have that conversation at the coffee corner anymore, or at the water cooler, or just walking around in the office and checking on people. Hey, how are you doing? Can I help you? Are you doing the right things? Now they're suddenly working at home. So how are you going to make sure that people are doing the right things in your company? I think that's also something that companies are struggling with.
Yeah, this like both points that you mentioned are really important. The second one is more like a, let's say, cultural change, I'd say. Because we had a lot of clients, a lot of companies, organizations that had the infrastructure, they had teams, they've been using SharePoint, they've been using all these digital transformation tools and technologies, but there was no, let's say, culture of this remote work. How do you see this, like how companies can bring this culture easier, especially as like point that you mentioned, like when we go and grab a coffee, we just have like a chat over there for a couple of minutes. How we can do something like this, or like
Yeah, it's difficult. So on the one hand, I think it indeed is trying to bring that culture to a remote way of working. So what we see and what we try to help organizations with, if you had your coffee moments, try to have those coffee moments in a remote way as well. You can still have a coffee break and join with people. It is through Teams or Zoom or whatever tool you want to use, but at least you still have that moment where you don't necessarily need to talk about work. You can still talk about work, and in essence, what we see, you will still talk about work, but you can also talk about what happened last weekend, or how's it going at home, and maybe kind of have that informal conversation as well. And on the other hand, I think we are both working in the IT world, and I think we have a kind of the positive side effect. We are used to working in remote teams, and we are used to maybe managing teams more in it's a term, but it's like the Kanban style. It's like with sticky notes or with buckets, and at least know what work you still have to do, and plan on that. And I think a lot of non-IT departments are just not used to that way of working, because they never had to. Right. So, and they didn't have those remote teams that we might have, that in IT are quite that we are quite familiar with already. And now suddenly there is marketing teams or I don't know, HR teams or legal teams that have to work from home as well. And it could help for them to bring insight into what they're working on. So, and a planner can be a good example, but it can be any other tool that you can use to at least define the work that you're working on, and to try to organize it in a way that everybody has the same view on what are we working on together, and what can we do, and how are we doing. And so I think it's partly about indeed that cultural change, but there is tooling out there that can help you, that can bring a solution to kind of speed up that cultural change as well. But yeah, you're right, just bringing in the tool won't work. So the biggest portion of changing this is in the mind, and is a mental thing, and it's about how are we going to work together, and do I trust the people in my team? It comes down to a lot of trust as well, and what could help there is give people responsibilities. When they have the responsibilities, they will act on them, and give them the trust, and you will see that it might work. But that's definitely a process that you need to go through.
Great.
And not something that is just happened with flipping a switch.
Exactly, very well explained on that. So back to your first point, if a company wants to like move into digital transformation, let's say they haven't already, uh, what are the top, let's say top two, top five, top three, whatever, uh, pitfalls or mistakes that they should have avoid to have a successful transformation into the digital workspace?
So I think the first of all is make sure that you have kind of rules of engagement. How do we use the digital workplace within the organization? So just launching the tools and just launching the platform, your workplace, the digital workplace, is not enough. We need to understand with each other how are we going to use it, and I think that's a big portion, and a lot of organizations forget about that. Because if we, let's say that Teams is like the cornerstone of your digital workplace, which we see more and more nowadays, right? And so if we all just start using Teams, but if we don't, I don't know, if we don't kind of get to a set of agreement with each other, then it's bound to cause stress. Because it's a lot of notifications coming in and people are like overwhelmed and they're, oh no, even more. And I already have Outlook, I already have my emails and WhatsApp coming in, and I have all these signals everywhere, and now I have even more. So but there's stuff that you can do about this if you make agreements. For example, something that I always tell organizations: make sure that your people, that the employees in the company, they know that you can only assume that someone has read a message in Microsoft Teams when that person is mentioned. If that person is not mentioned, you cannot assume that that person has read a message. And if you make this explicit within the organization, then that already helps. That already gives a sense of relief to a lot of people. If that's something that we agreed on with each other. And there's more examples like that, but I think it's really important to have this set of agreements in place, that we all know how to use the digital workplace, when to use what. Also very important, because there's multiple ways to organize your tasks, for example. There's multiple ways to store your files. There's definitely more ways that lead to Rome, as we say here. And it makes sense to have these agreements with each other. So I think that's the biggest one. And the second I would mention is just rolling out the technology. And it has to do with the first one as well. But just rolling out technology doesn't mean you have a digital workplace. It's also about the way of working, and you have to pay a lot of attention to how people use it, and to make sure that the adoption is right. And it's also known that if you start rolling out a digital workplace strategy, it confuses people, and you have to keep that in mind. There is no way you can prevent that. It will happen, but it's a given. But at least if you know that's going to happen, then you can act on it, and you can make sure that you take the right actions and the right adoption strategy. You have the right adoption strategy in place to make sure that people use it the right way.
Correct. Very, very well explained again. Like the people and processes are also as important as technology, not just technology.
I would say more. Yeah, I would say more important. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for mentioning that. Any other points about this topic that I haven't mentioned that you would like to talk about?
No, I think, well, the one thing, maybe it's not too late, right? So if you did go through this cooking pan, high pressure cooking pan in February, March, April, and you rolled out everything maybe a little bit too fast, and now you're overwhelmed. Okay, maybe I should have paid a little bit more attention to governance, which is kind of a dirty word, right? But it's something that is really needed and really required. There is still time. And it's better late than never. So make sure that you think about not just that adoption strategy, but also how are we going to handle if we have groups working together and those groups don't work together anymore, what are we going to do? How are we going to expire the underlying content? Do we need to expire it? Do we need to keep it? How are we going to keep it? Things like that. It's things you need to think about, and I think it's really important, because if you don't think about it, then the longer you wait, the more of a mess it will become, and you have to be careful that that in a couple of years you think that the whole digital workplace strategy has failed because you didn't think about the loose ends early enough in time.
Yeah, like governance is something that if we don't do it early, we have to pay twice, 3 times,
Yes.
much more than that to do it.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you for that. How our audience can get in touch with you? What is the best channel?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. I'm pretty active on Twitter. LinkedIn, of course. If you want to have a conversation, reach out and connect. That's, I think, the two most important places where people can find me, or send me an email. Of course, I have a blog, but I'm not really active blogging anymore. I used to, but at least all my contact details are at www.eekels.net. That's where you can find all my contact details as well. And please do reach out, or if you have any questions, I'd love to continue this conversation after the video.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Maarten, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for watching us. Hopefully, we'll see you next time with another great interview again. Until then, stay safe. Bye.
Thanks for having me, Reza. Bye-bye, everyone.